and welcome to the Inside Britball podcast. My name's Andy Taylor, and I'm joined, as always, by Stuart and Isaac to talk all things books. But as those who are watching can see, we're joined by a very special guest. We are joined by Bo Scholes, which, if you Google it, it's not Scholes. It comes up as Steward. But no, it's great to have Bo Scholes, who's the head coach of the Leeds Gryphons, with us to help us kind of talk all things books, but also help us preview the this weekend's fixtures for sure. But Bo, welcome to the Inside Britball podcast. It's great to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Brilliant. No, we're looking forward to exploring all sorts with you when it comes to being a head coach, but also how well the Leeds Gryphons have done this year for sure. But for those who don't know who you are, tell us how you got here to being the Leeds Gryphons head coach for the last few years.
So my history, I've played football for 11 years, was one of the first girls in the first GB women's game. Thought I was going to retire. That didn't go very well. Back in 2018, I think it was. I used to play at Leeds Beckett, women's Leeds Carnegie Chargers. We used to share a field with the Beckett boys, and my original thought was I was going to go coach with some of the coaches that got me into football, with like Odie, Dale and all them lot. I just couldn't coach and watch the girls train at the same time. So tried my luck and just went to the dark side of Leeds Uni, and missed every single person I knew in the football world, and joined them as the linebacker coach. But like just a new coach, didn't know any of them, didn't know how they were, what they were, where the university was or where they trained, and then loved it. I just had like the most elite group of linebackers and players and people. I think the university guys were much more like, the University of Leeds guys were like really intelligent, like really wanted to get it, but didn't maybe have the support that I'd had at Beckett. So it was really fortunate. And then COVID hit, so we won out that year. Didn't get to play the final. We were supposed to play Derby in the final, but the Bucks final got cancelled because of COVID. So technically we won because we were the number one seed, so we got promoted to the Prem. Head coach stepped down through life more than anything, and then I got offered the role during COVID, and then sort of started from there really. So
Unreal.
That's kind of where I am now. So. Yeah.
What's that been like? Because obviously it's a big deal taking up a head coach for any program, let alone a program that's clearly on the up and doing well within. And now we'll get onto it later, but now we're talking about final prospects in the Prem.
Yeah, it was really incredible, really. I think because I was completely out of my comfort zone, I was just able to grow as a coach. They didn't know me as Bo the football player or Bo the Leeds Beckett girl. They just knew me as Coach Bo, and I think I had a really good group. I had like the president and the captains in my group, and because I was invested in them, they invested their time in me, which allowed me to really, really grow. And then I think naturally being around like the it group of the linebackers, naturally the whole team sort of got behind me because they could see that what I was doing, like it's like little things like what was on the field. There was just carnage when I turned up. There was stuff everywhere, people wearing upside down jerseys. And I was like, whoa, what is going on? Like, you can't get dressed, I can't coach you, sort of thing. And they were just brilliant. And I think because the Gryphons historically have always been like alumni coaches, alumni head coach, alumni positional coach, alumni this. Like, there was myself and another coach that had never been to the University of Leeds, and we just kind of walked in and just had great fun with it because it wasn't our friends. We were just there to coach football. And I think it was probably a little bit of a shock for them, for someone to come from, like, I was from a national programme, like, really well-run, well-drilled football team. And I sort of, sounds silly, but like, I just wanted them to do best. And if I thought I could give to it, that was great. And I never had an issue with them. I think because I turned up, I knew my stuff. I was excited to coach. They never questioned whether I was a girl, which was my biggest fear. It was never a fear at Beckett, because they knew me and we'd had the respect of being with them for 5-6 years. And then I asked for the job description thinking about being the head coach. I had about a 5-minute chat, and then 2 weeks later they rang me like, well, we're giving you the job. I was like, okay, have I even interviewed? Like, it was really insane. And
You
then,
smashed it.
yeah, I'm pretty sure I only asked for the job description. I didn't actually ask for the interview. But do you know what? Like, it kind of pushed me into the thing. Like, I think there's different kinds of head coaches. You know, you've got your motivators, you've got like your really intelligent football coaches, and then like your really organised coaches. Like, I'm a really organised coach, and I know lots of great coaches. The easiest thing for me to do was succeed was bring loads of guys in that was everything that I wasn't, because I'd never been a coordinator at that point. I'd gone from a linebacker coach to a head coach like that. So I was like, right, so the first thing I need to do is just go find loads of coaches that can do everything that maybe I need some like help with. So yeah, it's kind of where I ended up. And we'd obviously just been promoted into the Prem. And then all my guys that were like the it guys graduated. So I started in the Prem year with Leeds Beckett at its strongest, Stirling, Durham and Nottingham, with 3 guys that had played a snap of football. Yeah.
That just shows how well you've done though as well. I know, Isaac, you had a couple of questions about the programme, didn't you, and that you wanted to ask about as well.
Yeah, so what's it like when, you are the biggest, historical team in Leeds as well? How is it like to attract players for yourself?
So players, it's really bizarre actually. The first year we were together, we just kind of grabbed anyone that wanted to come because we had a good coaching staff. We just sort of took anyone and everyone. Like, have you tried this? Put the kit on. Let's have a good time. And then actually, through losing and like being severely beaten in that first year, because we had like 4 weeks to get guys together to go up against like Nottingham Gold. Like, it was crazy. Just making sure they're safe and if we can get through it. Like next year, like there was no expectation for us to stay up. Like, if we'd have won a game that year, it would have been incredible. But I started with, like I said, 3 guys that played for us pre-COVID. 2 of them weren't starters. One was a backup quarterback that started at safety for me. Like, it was crazy. And now, like, I look back and I just think, had we have not lost so badly that year, we wouldn't be the team that we are now. Because if they could go through that season, I think we played Leeds Beckett on Super Bowl weekend. We lost 33-0. And we celebrated like we'd won. And the Beckett boys were like, what is going on? Like, you've just lost. And we're like, it's over. But like, we went to the Super Bowl that weekend, like we'd won, like we'd just happy we'd completed the season, no major injuries, nothing that was thing. But like, I look back on it and they're all best friends now. And I think that's something that I learned in football. Like, it's the cliche of football is family, but you do find your best friends, I think, at that age in them environments, especially when they've gone through sort of an 0-8 season. Like, it's unbelievable. Players is really difficult to recruit because our university don't give us anything. So we can go out and say, hey, come to the University of Leeds and pay your really expensive fees. Is the nicest way. We are a very, very good university in the respect of like educational wise and all that sort of stuff, which works in my favour because guys are like medics, so they're like here for like 5-6 years.
Yeah, I was thinking about Raptors, who when they had their really good season, they all had 5-year seniors, didn't they? In their team, so it must be of benefit sometimes for you.
Yeah, definitely. And the good thing about it is like, football's not just about being athletic, it's about being really intelligent. So actually, for me, going from like Leeds Beckett to like loads of athletes, then you just think, the difference between Leeds Beckett and Uni of is in the nicest way possible. One's a sporting uni full of athletes and one's an academic university. We have to play to our strengths here. We're not asking guys to go to the gym 6 times a week because they are genuinely studying and things like that. So it was a challenge for me to step out of the Beckett world and see all the athletes and see the setup that they had, and like Headingley campus, whereas we didn't do classroom for the first year. We didn't have a classroom to go to. Like, it's not convenient to drive 6 miles to a classroom and then 6 miles back to go to training. Like, it's impossible.
And that ring road to Leeds is not exactly helpful, is it, for traveling on that journey many times?
7 o'clock on a Tuesday night is literally the worst thing in Leeds. So it's just not feasible. But we're getting better. I've got a really good relationship with the SU. They can't give us money. They don't have money to give us. That's kind of how it is. So we can't be offering scholarships and things like that. But what our university does do is attracts the most intelligent people that, you know, it's a bit like Nottingham, but obviously if you've got the difference between Nottingham offering you something and Leeds offering you nothing, you are going to go to Nottingham. Yes, Jason's a great coach and they've probably got a better setup, and they're giving some support to the academic as well. Like, I like the fact that we're homegrown and we've got guys that have been since they're 18 and they're graduating, they've done 2-year masters, they've done 5 years with us. I love that. I mean, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't turn down a couple of scholarships and just a few guys, you know, like, I'm not going to say that, you know, it's all about us and we make everything we're here, because it would be a nice thing, but I'm also not sad that we don't have it, because I like the guys to be together 3 years. I like the fact that I know that in 5-6 years time, we hopefully will get invited to a wedding, the best men for each other's wedding. Like, that's what it's all about for me. I'd like a ring. I'd really like to not go out in the semi-final again. Like, it'll be the third year if we lose this weekend. It's becoming really, really boring coming third and fourth. But
yeah, I'm sure it is, and we will get onto that. I'm absolutely certain that we'll talk through that game and try and break that down as well. And I'm interested as to where you've taken your sort of like your experiences from, because you've obviously mentioned that you're well experienced with GB, so you've been an elite athlete in that setup and done, you know, won gold, silver medals at the very least, haven't you? And the like, and been around amazing coaches. So I'm just intrigued to understand where your influences in your coaching come from, because you mentioned just before we started that I'm sure it's an off the cuff comment that you don't actually coach because of the amazing coaches that you're around. So tell the listeners who, you know, kind of like, I'm sure it's not just one, and it's been a lot of influences across your career.
Yeah, like, I think, like, people speak differently of different opinions of everyone. Like, Jim Messenger was my first head coach, but the first ever game I ever played of football was for GB, where we played fives versus Sweden. And I think a lot of the reasons why I am the admin coach was because he was really good at the stuff that took no talent on the field. So everything was organised, everything was planned, we knew what we were doing, what we were wearing and where we were going. Yes, it's probably to the extreme in some respects, but I think I learned a lot from that, because I didn't know anything about football back then, but I knew that I had to wear a red jersey if I was on the offence, and if I was wearing a blue jersey, I was playing defence. And I think I learned a lot from that. In regards to great coaches that I've had, like Matt Gorn, who's still with the programme now, he's a DB coach. I'm a middle linebacker / D end. He tried to teach me coverage. I've got clues still. Poor guy. I think he had the will to live, but I really wanted to learn, and I just couldn't go backwards. He was just like, go play D end. Josh Gaff. Again, I met him weirdly when we coached at Tamworth. He was part of the O-line, and then just sort of met him in the coaching world, but just an amazing human. So I do special teams for Gryphons and he does special teams for GB Women's, and anything that I need, no matter the time of day, I must do his head in sometimes. I'm just like, can we talk special teams? And like the friendship that comes from that is like, you know, they're the ones that you can't, you know, I owe them the world. There's so many opportunities that I've been given. You know, I've got a European silver, World Cup finalist, silver medalist, like, you know, Jason, I did his season, and Jason at Tamworth years and years ago, drove from Leeds to Tamworth twice a week. Homer and Luke Carlton at Manchester. Like, there's all these great guys that no matter what I want to talk about, because I want to learn more, they don't really care if I'm a woman. It's never been like that. It's just like, somebody's interested in football and they want to stay around it. Of course, we'll give them opportunities. I'm luckily enough that my husband also coaches, and he's the GB Women's O-line coach. He's also my offensive coordinator, but he's been my head coach. Like, it's really weird. We didn't meet. We met through football, and then 11 years ago when I started the Beckett team up. But like, just watching, like, he's never coached me because we've been very separate in that world. Like, I want to be getting my accolades because of who I am, and I don't want him to think that he can't coach me or have to make a decision whether to cut me and things like that. Like, it's been very much, he's very great with his group, and I want to say that I'm great through what I've done, and then we talk about it on the way home. But he's like, how the GB women O-line in all the history that we've been, or I was part of it, are just like the elite group, and there is no one in any other program that could control that group, because they are big, strong, attitude, like girls with attitude, but they respect him. And I think because you know, I see these guys that coach women and respect them, want them to be better players. You know, there's loads. I've literally written like how many women's coaches names I can write, like I've got it in front of me. But all the people that have really supported me have all been male coaches. But I think that's because I'm the start of the generation of female coaches. But like I said, there's some big names that have really, really looked after me. Martin Hilton's my coaching mentor. Like, no matter what, we always message like good luck and game day morning on a Sunday. Like, good people that just want to make sure that we're okay. And I think I'm sure they do it with everyone. It's just not the fact I'm a woman, but I think because I've been actively like, hi, can you help me? I don't know how to do this. I've never been a head coach, or I've never been a positional coach. Like, can I come and watch a practice? Do you want to scrimmage? Can you lead a practice? And it's priceless. But I think I'm quite outgoing. Like, I will happily turn up to a training session and be like, hi, can I watch? Like, how do you do this? Why are you doing that? And I think that's just because I want to be the best person I can be for the program. Winning, losing aside, like outside of football, I think that's really important.
It totally is, isn't it? Guys, keep going.
You unfortunately you took one of my questions out of my mouth. It was going to be around that sort of scholarship and finance piece, because when I was coaching at Birmingham, just like before COVID, we were always trying to we could see teams were getting ahead of us in that sort of aspect, and it was like, okay, do we need to keep up, or can we do it our own way? And it sounds like we've had very similar journeys in terms of universities not being able to offer, you know, the tens of 20s of scholarships that others are, but you know, we were still able to attract a couple of homegrown talents. We were able to offer the homegrown guys a little bit of tuition fees, a little bit of accommodation fees and stuff like that, which kind of helped in the short term, but obviously hasn't helped them in the long run going forward.
We don't do anything, like, we don't even do that. Like, even if the Div 1 athlete came, they'd still have to pay their £80 fees. Like,
the other thing I was interested.
Go on.
Sorry, Bo. The other thing I was interested to pick your brains around was like the change in structure beginning of this season, and sort of splitting off that almost like the cream of the crop. The guys that
I think it's the best decision. I think it's the best decision. I have kudos to Tanya for actually doing it, because I know it gives, like, the way that I look at it is, we're in Prem football of British American football, like books British American football, and when we play teams, they are British university students in the respect of they started when they were 18 and they're doing it. SGS obviously maybe a little bit younger, but it was never healthy to always come second or third or fourth, which is where I felt if we'd have gone back up, let's say we'd have won it last year or the year before when Loughborough went up, you know, I've not got the stuff that Loughborough have on campus. You know, I don't have Power Base, I don't have athletic, I don't have NFL academies, you know. And I think it's the best thing for the sport. I think it's good because the league, I mean, if Beckett were what Beckett were last year or the year before, that league would be absolutely insane. Like Durham,
imagine, right?
Nottingham beating UWE beating Nottingham, like there's exactly, but it's good football as well. Like, I wouldn't want my guys to be in that league, because I know in September or October, my first game is that I'm going to have an 18-year-old kid playing somewhere against, if I was in that league, a Div 1 scholar who was 23, 24. And I just think, I don't feel safe doing that. I have to put 11 people on the field. If he is the best in that position, then I have to put him in there. But like, I think it's brilliant. I think it's healthy. I think could BAFA learn from it from like a Prem League? It's all about finances, and I know the universities finance things differently to BAFA, and that's no mean feat. But it all depends on that thing of like, is cost to competition? Is there 5 teams in the country where if they were to cost things properly and make the league more, like London, Manchester, probably EKP this year with Booney, up there, Bristol, like it's a lot of travel, but I know I would rather travel to Bristol and play good football than, I don't know, play someone like Hull. I know. Do you know what I mean? Like, again, it's different in the Bucks League because it changes every 3 years. Like, we might next year graduate loads of people and all that sort of stuff. Whereas I think that if they just bit the bullet and did it in adult league, it might be rough for a year, but I think it would attract the right people who are willing to travel. I think it's great.
It'll be interesting when we haven't gone too deep into it just yet on the podcast, but we're getting there with this. The way the Prem North is set up in the adult contact this year, where you can't pick one of the 5 that's going to be worthy of relegation at this point, because you're going to have a Scottish super team and you're going to have the guys who are well established and Nottingham Caesars who seemingly going to come up with 200 players. So it'll, to your point, I think it might end up going. It looks like even with the play-ins that are coming this year that we're looking towards Bucks for a bit of inspiration sometimes, haven't they? And I suppose.
It's got to go. You've got to do it. You just got to do it 1 year. And yes, people will travel from all over to go play at these teams, but then that also balances out Div 1 and Div 2, like the players from Div 2 that maybe want to aspire to be a bit more but aren't good enough for the Div 1s. Like, give it 2 years. I think it would even itself out. It's just having the initial person say, we're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? I think.
Yeah.
I know when we were at Manchester and we were shaking hands with Bristol or we were shaking hands with Warriors, they're like, say when we was at Tamworth, like, we wish we played you guys more often rather than just in a semi-final and a final, because it would make the football better in the UK. And I don't know why. I get it, because National League is paid for by the people and not necessarily the university, but you've got to do it at some point.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And we also wanted to pick your brain, obviously, because you've touched upon it that there aren't many female head coaches in our sport, is there? Certainly in British American football. So you're one of few. I think we were trying to rack our brains as to who the few might be. So we think we're you, and obviously last year there was Lindsay up in Caledonia, and there was Georgia until her statement this week, of course.
So I was literally talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
I was like, well, this has ruined the podcast. Now I'm booked, Georgia's doing really well, blah, blah, blah. And then that came out. I literally said to Connor, I was like, well.
Yeah, exactly. But nonetheless, it's not common. And I'd be interested to know, what does that mean for you? How do you see you being a female head coach? You touched upon it where you don't feel as if you're treated as a female head coach, which is great. And also sort of like a B question to that is why? What's your thoughts on why?
I think it's one of those things, like, even when I walk in a room of 100 male coaches, like, I know what they're talking about. Like, I'm quite confident in football. I've been around football long enough now to stand in the room and have a conversation. Like, there's not, and like, it's really bizarre. The worst people I found, sorry Stuart, is the referees. My first season, I was up in Stirling, and they asked me if I was the physio, and my jacket even had HC on it back then, and I was like, no, I'm the head coach, which was really, I think they were a bit more like mortified than I was, because I was just a bit like, no, I'm the head coach, how can I help? And then I think in the Premier I had a bit of that, but I think because it never happened before. So I think, I took the rough with the smooth. But now, it's just Coach Bo, and no matter where I go and who I'm speaking to or I'm shaking hands with, there's no question of who I am, because like I said, because I kind of do stand up for myself, and I'm not the physio, you're me taping people, crikey. But the sport's got some incredible women around it, like Amanda McDonald. Like, everyone knows who she is. They maybe don't know what she does and how much she does for it, but she's one of the hearts of Bafra, and has been way before I was getting involved. Like her, Faye, like they've always been super helpful with our coaching registrations. I was looking through the list of names. Like I've got like Holly that's at Hearts, I've got Benita, Anne Morgan, Laura Moore, who coached at Nottingham, obviously Thebes, got Yavin V, and like they're all over. Like I've got 37 names of coaches that I know that are female, not head coaches. But assistant offensive coordinators. Obviously Kelly Barrett's just been made the under-17s flag head coach, I think it is, under-19s.
Under 21s, but she's overall, isn't she, of it all as well? But still, a great shout.
Yeah, and then you've got people like Bev and Jackie and Ellie as part of Bafra medical teams. Like, there's lots of women in the sport. And I think I was on a coaching call on Monday, and we looked at like number of coaches registered on Bafra Resolve, and I was like, well, it's nice to see that it's now not 1 or 2 women, it is sort of 30, 40, 50 women. And I mean, I'm super fortunate. I've got, there's myself, 2 other female coaches, and I've got my queen of program, a lady called Julie. I've never had a female player, which is really bizarre. But we all know each other, and it would be nice if those people are bringing people through, that we could have like a bit of a community. Not as easy as adding people into a Facebook group and all that sort of stuff, but exchanging experiences, where we go to the Bafra convention now and there is more women there. It's really good to see. Again, like, I'm so lucky that I can have the conversations like Spoonie's just amazing. Like, he'll open the room up to anyone, invite anyone in. And I think when people see like the last coaching convention, I think there was like myself, Zoe, who plays for Birmingham but also coaches at Gloucester, I think it is, and Bristol Aztecs. She was in the room, Georgia was there, Thebes was there, and they're just having normal conversations, because we're just coaches. Like, it's not strange to have women in the room. It was really nice. But yeah, there's a lot of women in Bafra books that maybe people aren't aware of. Like, I got my little board in front of me, and it's full of like loads of little female names.
Yeah, amazing. We tried to do something similar, but we decided to put down that spade, because we were thinking, well, we're going to forget about somebody. You did a great job.
I know that I've been around. It's like your Moody, your Lindsay, your Laura Dyes, your Vanessa's, George's, Amy, Laura Pilks at Beckett. I think she's still coaching at Beckett. And these are all people that we've played football with. Like, imagine the people that I don't know, because I've never bumped into them, or they've not been at a convention when I've been there, or they're not playing GB, or they're in the south and I'm in the north. It's really good, and it's really nice to see, like, when I go play other people, there is women on their sidelines coaching as well. Because I think it's almost like when you're shaking hands, like, you give a little nod to each other, like, how you doing? Like, more so than anything. I think it's a really good community. I think there's a lot of negative stuff that says around this community, but it's never been women in this coaching or women in the sport. It's never been one of that. And I think that's something that we should be proud of as a community, that we are supporting this sort of stuff, because it is an adult league. Like, let's make that clear. There is women playing in the adult league. There is women that are playing really well in the adult league. And what I've seen is, if they want to be around a program and the program appreciates them, then they'll give back, which I think any decent player or human does anyway. So, like Tika at Manchester, she was one of the receivers. Like, she wasn't the female receiver or anything like that. Like, she's one of the players, and it was nice because the boys backed it, which made it easy for me to go and coach such a crazy team. Like,
Totally.
the names in the group, and I was just like, I'm not good enough to be here.
Yeah, and I guarantee all of us have been around some inspiring women in the sport as well. You know, I think about Chloe Southard, who's now in the GB program I've coached and been on the sideline with, and you know, Laura Dye, as you mentioned, you know, who was inspiring to a lot of development for myself as well. And you know, I think that's what we're, you know, certainly what you guys, the leaders like yourselves, you do. You inspire the next, don't you? And you know, on that note, you know, what would you say to somebody who, you know, whether it is a younger female who might be listening in and thinking that I want to be that person one day?
Do you know what? Just surround yourself with great people. I think what I learned when I became a head coach was coach people you like, not people you think that are the best. I made some coaching decisions that were wrong. Leave that as is. And the right ones have been made since. And like, if you enjoy spending time with people doing things that you love, it literally doesn't matter who they are. Like, even if you just end up coaching 500 DBs and just love the pass game and just be around 499 DBs that love it as well, like, you're going to be great because you're in an environment that you love. Like, and once you do that, you get to progress to the next stage, Somebody will be in awe of you and think they're great at this, so let's let them grow. And I think that's so important.
Brilliant. And lastly from me, and I'll let these guys get in because I love talking and getting these sort of insights from the likes of yourself, Bo. But this weekend is International Women's Day. So what does it mean for you personally, but also what do you think it might mean for the sport if you wanted to go that deep?
You know, there's so many people before us. Like, I played rugby as a young age, you know, in the nicest way possible. I used to play with like Emily Scarrett and, you know, Marley Packer and all the girls that run the England thing now. Like, where I was when I was 17 is where this sport is now. So I think if 17 was a long time ago, so fast forward a few years, I'm hoping that women in sport has grown again in the same sort of percentage that it has from when I was a kid, when I was that running around on the muddy field. But it's becoming more and more noticeable. There's more talk. People do watch women's sports. People are involved in women's sports. So if you're a woman being in the room with the loads of males, like, people are going to support you because it's such a great thing. Like, if it doesn't happen straight away, we're only going forward. Like, and I think where we are as a sport in the UK, it's only going to get better, you know. And if we're part of that and we're at the forefront of it, even better. Like, it's unbelievable how much support we've had as a GB women's team, because that's where it all started for us, right? That's where everyone started playing American football, bar the 3 teams at university pre the game. The growth of the sport and the growth of the success and the growth of being a woman in a male-dominated world is growing, and just really, like, throw yourself into it, because you might have one negative comment, but you'll have thousands and thousands more successful moments. And I think if you get, you know, a million things go wrong, but you've got one reason to stay, that one reason to stay will be the thing that you remember. And yeah, just throw yourself in it, because there's one element of football that you'll love, whether you don't know football or not, whether that's the team aspect, going and playing away games, bus journeys, being in the rain on West Park on a Sunday afternoon at 4 p.m. when it's windy and it's horrible. Like, there'll always be a moment that you remember, and if it's just part of your story, just roll with it.
Every time we bring up travelling to Leeds, Isaac rolls his eyes as if it's like PTSD or something. So
it's the worst.
Only 80 yards. They've sewn them hash marks in, and they put the end zone too close to the end of the railing, so you can't play there anymore.
Yep.
Absolutely ridiculous. What a shame.
No. Never mind.
No, it's not a shame at all. Bin it completely.
Incredible. So before we move on to looking at the book sort of competitions that are on at the moment, any of you guys got any other questions for Bo? And if not, we'll get going with the conference cups. No, awesome. So Bo, you're going to stay around and help us look at the competitions as they stand, because you probably got a little bit more insight than us, to be fair, on some of these competitions. So as always with the playoff stuff, we go through competition at a time. And so we're going to start off with the Southern Conference Cup, which is obviously Tier 2. And we had some potentially some surprise results, didn't we, guys? So Stuart, what stood out to you in this Southern Conference bracket that we saw at the weekend? Obviously, we didn't have OBU Aberystwyth happening. I'll say it for you, Isaac. And that didn't happen in the end. But we had some probably some potential upsets in this bracket this weekend.
I'm not sure whether I'd class it as an upset, but certainly I think I picked it out last week, the Bullets 2 versus Queen Mary, that game being such a competitive fixture, and just compare it to the other two scores on the graphic there. I nearly said 3. The other 2 scores on the graphic there, it seems like it was a heck of a game. I normally speak to a Bullets 2's coach, and I haven't caught up with him since the game, but a couple of his comments on socials we're sort of leaning towards, it was a tight, close game, and they never really, for the amount of effort that they put in, they didn't get much out, unfortunately. What that was alluding to, I'm not quite sure. It's sort of normal coach speak with cloak and dagger. Little wry smile from Bo, I can see. So, we've all been there and done that. But no, congratulations to Queen Mary. They obviously now have to travel to Oxford Brookes, which is going to be no mean feat. That's going to be a heck of a semi-final in the south.
And we'd kind of wondered whether Sussex were going to be that hidden gem, didn't we, Isaac? And Bo, I don't know whether you've got any insight into some of these teams as well, but that Sussex Saxons as the 6th seed will be travelling to Plymouth in the semi-finals this weekend as well. Oh no, next weekend, isn't it?
The only thing I know is that the Queen Mary Vipers head coach is the GB women's head coach. So I'm backing them anyway, because he's a good friend of the household. And I think it was their first
playoff win. Yeah, I think I saw that over socials as well. So congratulations to them.
So hopefully their momentum will take them to at least the final. I think it'll be good for them. And they've got a female coach. I think Yaz coach is there as well. So.
That's right. Yeah, saw that. That's amazing, isn't it? And Isaac, what about yourself?
Yeah, no, so I don't think Sussex is really that much of a surprise, if I'm honest. We saw it all season long that they know how to score. If you look, they've got a better points differential than the number 2 and the number 3 seed, and somehow number 6. Quite of a weird one. But no, I don't think really it's a long way to go from Sussex to Plymouth, I'm guessing. Don't know the South. We go through this every single week. But I'm going to guess it's quite a long way. But no, I still think they'll be riding the confidence from beating a good Kingston side. And, we'll take that into a Plymouth game there. Plymouth have looked like they're just going to, it looks like they could score some real points now, especially scoring 33 on a team, which I think is the highest points total they've scored all season in any one match. So, no, that semi-final is going to be a really good one, because it's 2 teams now who look like they know how to score.
Yeah, and they don't concede much either, do they, Plymouth? No. So that's going to be a cracking game, and let's see what Quimble can show up to Oxford in a couple of weeks' time as well. So really interesting semi-final matchups coming up there. Let's have a look at the Northern Conference Cup, because we saw some rematches of what we've seen all year long, haven't we? We didn't get to see Derby versus Cambridge, because the Cambridge didn't travel to Derby in the end, but we saw Sheffield do what they did to Sunderland earlier in the year. The War of the Roses, which I'm sure, Isaac, you want to talk about, ended up being 21 to the wrong Rose. I can say that in front of you and Bo. And then we had Edge Hill beat the Lincoln Colonials 26-13 as well. So Isaac, I'll give you first dips at this. What stood out to you in these matchups?
Well
let
done,
me
York.
guess where you're going to go.
York, well done. Proud of you. Thanks. No, it's that York game. Lancaster have not been the team what they promised all season long. We knew that from week 1, where they've looked shaky from the start of the season. I think York have gone there on a high. Yes, they lost to Sheffield right at the back end of the season, but going into that game, they took a lot of confidence into it, and they know that Sheffield are a top quality side, and and Sunderland know that as well, and they'll be there. Just I think it's maybe their first playoff appearance, or one of very little, anyways. So they'll be loving that experience that they've got, and yeah. So I think Sheffield there is one of the standouts. Them and Derby, obviously.
And Bo, you might know some of these teams, and have you played any of these in the past? You've got Sheffield and York in and around you, I suppose, maybe Edge Hill.
Yeah, so we've never bumped into York. We played Sabres when I was a linebacker coach at Gryphons. I know when they lost George Foster, they went down a season, but the new head coach, I think this is his second season. I think last year it was a rebuild season. I know he lost his DC this year because he's moved to Newcastle. He's a DC up at Newcastle now, but a great program with a lot of alumni and things like that. So I think sometimes you have to knock it down to start again. And I think the head coach at Sabres is doing a really good job.
It's kind of something we've said all season long, actually, is that Sheffield have kind of proven that they don't belong in this tier, and that they really are building up nicely to a tier 1 season next season. But otherwise, it was pretty much business as usual. And we've got the same question for Sheffield Sabres that we had for Edinburgh last week, didn't we? Which is they're facing in the playoffs the same teams they faced all season. So we're going to, assuming, and if they do go on and do what they've done all season and beat York, we'll have to wait to the final for them to see a different opposition than they've seen all season. And Stuart, is there anything else to add from your point of view for the Northern Conference Cup?
Not massively, if I'm really honest. It's it kind of all pretty much went true to form. Edge Hill found sort of 26 points to get past Lincoln, which is good for them. It's now just, can they put a few more points up against Derby, because their offense, they'll have had a week off, they'll be well rested. They'll probably get back on the training field this week, and then going into the games the following weekend, that they'll have a lot more fresh legs underneath them. They'll gel again. They could have tweaked a lot of their playbook that Edge Hill won't have seen. So yeah, that'll be an interesting matchup for me.
Yeah, and 4 good teams made it into the semi-finals here, similar to obviously the South, but the cream of the crop is rising for sure. Let's move on then to the national trophy. So we start with the Southern bracket this time, or we did it the first time around actually, but always weird to see this. South first, not North. We're Northerners here, aren't we? So we had obviously the it's technically the quarterfinals, isn't it? But we had Bournemouth versus Kent. That ended up being 22-0, and we had Brunel with a stonking win against Bristol, setting up a nice Southern final with Bournemouth Brunel, which is just a tasty fixture in itself, isn't it, Stuart? When we're looking at how this bracket is playing out.
Yeah. Just to come back to your point, we do South first because they're technically going to be the home team this year. So they flip-flop year on year. So last year, North were home, South were away at the final. This year, South are home, North are away. So that's why this is kind of 2 mismatched graphics. Bournemouth, 22 points against Kent. Is that a bit of a surprise? Because they'd sort of steamrolled everybody that wasn't called Bath Killer Bees. We've kept saying this all year. But again, we're coming up against, I'm going to not apologise for saying this, sort of stronger opposition in the playoffs. So, maybe that bandwagon is starting to be slowed down a little bit. And it'd be interesting to see how Brunel do against that potent offence. But it looks like Brunel have found their own as well, putting up 58 points in a playoff game, which is absolutely phenomenal. That's a heck of a good going. And yeah, sorry, it's not Bristol Barracuda in the semi-final as I originally posted. It is the Brunel Burners.
yeah, absolutely. We had to do a quick correction when we said that Bristol Barracuda had made it to the final. So sorry about that for giving anybody a heart attack. But Bo, you can talk to it yourself. For Bournemouth to go 10 games without conceding 10 points all season, 1 point a game, they're going to be a tough defence for anybody, aren't they, going forward, whoever it is that they come up against?
Yeah, like those sort of stats are what head coaches want to hear, right? And especially as a defensive player, like defenses win championships, don't they?
Of course they do.
In the nicest way possible. Listen, I think this is actually going to be one of the best games. I think they've both got what it takes to be a Southern champion. I think it'll be who turns up on the best on the day. Like the offense for Brunel against the defense of the Bobcats, and vice versa. I think they're pretty balanced. I think it should be a good one to watch, and I think a good one to review as well afterwards. Be interesting to see where this one goes, I think.
100%. It's almost like the immovable object and the unstoppable force, isn't it? Because although, both have done really, really well, it's this sort of, interconference sort of matchups that we start to really know how well they are, because they're not facing who they've got in their divisions. And, Brunel's defense ain't no pushovers either, with 42, 48 all season. So they're doing all right for themselves. So it might just be the game of the week going in. Mightn't it? But Isaac, you obviously wrote the preview on all of this. I think you were umming and ahhing whether Cuda could show up and upset Brunel, but that kind of was laid to bed quite quickly, wasn't it? I think it was quite a lot at half time as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Barracuda got burnt quite bad. No, I remember writing about it, and I think Bristol could use these playoff. Playoff game is completely different to what it is in the league. It's two different animals, and obviously they got the upset against KCL. Going into this one thinking, could do it again, and unfortunately they haven't. But no, that Southern final is looking, it looks incredible, doesn't it? Really.
Yeah, absolutely. Should we have a little look at the North then? Because we like the North because it's where we're comfortable, isn't it? But what ended up is that Edinburgh and Napier Knights will actually face a different opposition than what they've watched than they've had all season. But they don't need to travel far because they'll be hosting, and their opposition won't be far away either, coming from Northumbria. But we saw what has happened already twice this season, which is the Napier Knights beat Stirling Clansmen 33-14, and we saw a tight game up in Northumbria where they overcome the Sheffield Hallam Warriors. So Isaac kind of went to script a little bit, although we wondered what would happen in Northumbria in the end, didn't we?
Yeah, Hallam were going to go up there with a ton of confidence. We knew that going into it, after beating Nottingham Green, pretty much their biggest rivals apart from the Uni of Sheffield. But no, Northumbria handled business really as best as they could, and they're now into their second Northern final in a year after having Div 2 final last year. Now going to travel up north and see what they can do. So yeah, it's got that game there. We've got two incredible finals in this division, haven't we? Really.
Yeah, Barry. Do you know many of these programs? Is it? Can you give us any special insight to the game that we have now coming up this weekend?
For different reasons. Northumbria, we played it when we were in the Borders. They're not the team that they are now. And when we played them, it was not embarrassing for us, let's say, when we played them. But I think they've got everything that they had. I think they had a bit of an issue years ago where we were in the Borders with their fees and stuff were astronomical, which just didn't allow the program. But again, they've got it back on track. I know Pete, their head coach, has really put lots of time and effort into building. I think, you can, in the nicest way possible, 3 years ago, you could do that in the Borders. I think that's when they got demoted, but then I think the league similarly ended up with similar sort of people in, and they probably needed to go down to get to where they are now. They're a fun coaching staff. I know they've got the brothers, the wide receiver and the quarterback, which, money can't buy. They've been playing football since they were a kid together, that sort of stuff. And it only takes two guys to interest two more guys, which 4 becomes 8, becomes 16. And winning attracts people. It's a lot easier to recruit when you say, oh, we didn't lose a game last year and, we went to a final and we've done this. I think Pete and the Mustangs will do really well. Whereas I know Napier, for a different reason, obviously their coaches are always on force at every conference you can possibly think of.
Yeah, complete coaching royalty up in that program, isn't there?
Yeah, but you know what? That's where it comes from. That program is good because their head coach is incredible. He's got the right work ethic. He's all over making sure his coaches are better coaches. So he has absolutely nailed it. And I think it's now becoming a product of what he's building as a staff, because the players, this is the thing in books football, right? Every 3 years, 4 years, you're losing that guy, that stud that turned up. You might even have him for a year, whereas he's putting time and effort into his coaches that, they don't want to leave. Why would you leave a program where your head coach is investing so much into you? He drives them down to the conference. He's got a Scottish conference, I think, that's just been announced. Is that right?
Yeah, some sort of coaching clinic. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Which he's got a massive lead in. I know we were talking on Monday about speaking to more coaches. He's been around the program for a long time, and I think just deserves to him, because Pete versus Pete, I guess. Yeah, I think what Mustangs have done with the program's brought it up, but I think what Pete's done at Edinburgh is, an outcome of hard work as a head coach, which has then led to a great coordinators, which has led to great staff, which has led to great assistants, and then the players have just engulfed all the knowledge. And I think that program and what he's doing is, Pete Laird is one of the forefronts, I think, of book football at the moment. He's growing his own coaches, he's investing in new people, and I think that's the product of why they're reaching the final. I'm really excited for that game, because they're two very different teams, and their journey to the final, I think, is quite exciting. I think Mustangs probably had, with UCAN in their league, again, sort of like everyone was expecting UCAN to be in the final. But, you've got to get the wins with the better points difference. And I think UCAN will be there next year. I think it's a big ask to go from one to the next. But I think Pete Laird is the winner here for me in the Edinburgh Napier Knights. I think he deserves it. Yeah. As from coach to coach, more than anything.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? They're doing an incredible job. We have a soft spot for Edinburgh Napier as well, because they're always in our DMs correcting us when we're wrong. So we're engaging with Edinburgh Napier Knights often. Yeah, so we do love it. We love the community engagement. So we do love what we get from the Napier Knights often on a weekly basis, for sure. So keep it coming, guys, and best of luck this weekend for sure. But sure, we're getting somewhere closer to home now, Bo, because we've got this bracket that you'll have been digesting eagerly over the last few months. And there's a little tiny game for you this weekend, isn't there? When you've got to do a really small journey from Leeds to Bristol, and you were talking about how the travel's probably the easy part, and setting up for an SGS Pride team who have done a little bit well for themselves this year as well. So give us some insight into this semi-final matchup that's due this weekend for yourselves and SGS Pride.
This is the perfect example of, I would rather travel to Bristol and play good football every week than play teams that you don't have to prepare for, or you don't not respect's not the right word, but you think, we'll rotate in the third. Those sort of games for me are just preparing us for this sort of stuff. Whereas if we could just do this every week, I'm a sore loser. I can't stand losing, but I'd rather play good football and make the team better and expose them to stuff. Going to Pride and playing the football players is one thing, but going to their facilities is something. We play at West Park on an 8-yard field in the dark. We're going to inevitably one of the nicest fields in book football, in BAFA, British American football. It's just an elite game. Again, I think it's going to be a tale of two stories. They're athletic guys, they're good, they're well coached. I'm hoping we're a little bit smarter than they are. I hope we've done enough homework on them, because I back our guys. Like I said, we're not the most athletic team, but we started the year, we've got 127 guys on our books this year, paid memberships. We have 80 regularly at training. We have to select 52 guys to the point where the coaches can't get on the bus. We have to drive to Bristol at the weekend, because we'd rather take 52 players and they get on the bus than the coaches get on there. We're super fortunate, but we're quite quiet about it. my big thing is like, just be quite humble with it. Like, enjoy the wins, you know, we win together, we lose together, all the cliches you can possibly think of. Whereas SGS are not like that. SGS are completely opposite. And that's totally fine. You know, like, we've not come across this style of football, or, you know, the big show and the following that they have. Like, fair play to them. Like, they've done it really well. And again, if someone wanted to plonk that field in my sports facility, I would take it. If I could have some of their coaches, I would take them. Some of their players, I would take them. But, you know, we train hard and we work really hard, and we've got a lot of guys that graduate this year that are my premier. That's like, it could be their last game, like my quarterback Louis Cooper, you know, my tight end Josh Booth, Adam Knight, my prayers, my starting linebacker. Like, this is the last year of my first year guys.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's the last opportunity that the first guys I was ever a head coach for graduate. So there's a little bit more to it, I think, for us, that I'm hoping will give us the edge, because that's the joys and the worst bit and the best bit about football is that, you know, it could be their last game. And for us, we're graduating the core of leaders. You know, they've all been to the semi-final the last 2 years with us, and they're sick of being kicked out in the semi-final for the last 2 years. And it's the last opportunity that we do have an opportunity to go to, you know, Big Books Tuesday. And I'm hoping that just gives us the edge a little bit. I think coaching wise, I've got great coaches. They've got great coaches. They've got great players. We've got great players. You know, I think it's very different because I think the players at SGS want to do football for a long time. You know, they want to go to Europe. They want to play top league, you know, ELF, you know, combine, all that sort of stuff. I know after this weekend or after the final, whatever the last game is of this season, my guys are going to go be lawyers, and they're going to be mechanical engineers. They're going to be anything, accountants, all this sort of stuff. And I think that means that they want it a little bit more, because they don't want to go and play Rams, and they don't want to go play at Manchester Titans, and they don't want to go to the ELF. They want to be a Gryphon, and they want to get a medal. And this could be the last chance that they're getting a medal.
Brilliant.
Does that make sense? Like, it's
100%.
Little bit of a different journey. I mean, of course, Pride want to go to the final. They like finals. They like silverware. You know, who doesn't? But they'll be playing football again next weekend, like after the season, should I say? Like, and those guys and the coaches will get more guys that will go to the ELF and go to the combine and all that sort of stuff. I'm not going to have that.
And without giving too much away, where do you think the game's going to be won and lost in this matchup? Because you've got, we've always talked on this podcast about how we've been impressed about how you can score, and we've also been equally impressed about how SGS don't know how to concede points as well, and they can score a few points themselves, of course, but it's almost like they haven't really blown too many people away, whereas you've got a couple of blowouts under your belt. So where do you see it on the pitch?
I genuinely think it will be who makes the least mistakes. I know it's like, again, very cliche, like coaching decisions. Are we punting here? Are we not? Like, do we go for the field goal? Like, I think, and well, the Exeter game, I don't know if you saw the rundown of how the Exeter game went, but it was the hardest game to coach I've ever coached, because it's they scored, we scored, they scored a 2-point, we didn't, then we scored and we scored the 2-point. It was absolutely horrendous. Like, I've never been exhausted after a game of football coaching more than I have been playing. And last weekend, and I think that's what's going to be the difference this weekend. I think the team who makes the least bad decisions, whether that be players or coaches or, you know, kicking off with the refs. I mean, I'd like to think my sideline's quite well behaved, but we all get, well, my coaches get a little bit.
We all get heated sometimes, even the most mellow of us.
I'm my own get back coach. Like, I'm the least heated person. I don't know if you've heard me on a, like the sport tank thing. I'm like, what's your manners? Like, there's no need for that. We're better than that. No, I think it sounds silly. I don't like, our quarterback's amazing. My linebacker's amazing. Safety's great. they've got some good wide receivers, big nose tackle, but one person's not going to change game, but decisions will be the winner this weekend. And I think we're both fairly intelligent in the football world. So I think it's probably a bigger coaching battle to make sure that we as coaches make less mistakes than the other coaches do, putting the players. I think the players, man for man, they might have a little bit on us in some positions. We might have a bit on them in some positions. Whereas I think it will be as exhausting for us as coaches as it will be the players. And that's what I'm excited for, because it's another challenge for us, I think.
Brilliant. And also balancing that with travel as well, which will be just as exhausting as well for you, won't it? But no, we're really excited for it, for sure. And it's something that we were highlighting when we were previewing the quarterfinals, wasn't it, Isaac? That we were wondering Leeds, that team, that team that could appear out of nowhere and upset a few people along the way, and certainly that's what we're thinking when it came to trying to preview this SGS Pride game, wasn't it, Isaac?
Yeah, exactly. I think, you got SGS who train, 3-4 times a week together, compared to how many times you train a week, Bo, as a team? Twice. These lads, SGS will know each other inside out. They'll train weekends. A lot of them will play and either played for the same youth team or will now play for the same youth team as well, and adults and all sorts. But yeah, no, I've always been hoping for that Leeds playing final at West Park. Yeah, that's what the dream is.
And it's similar to sort of Queen's Mary. Like, it was our first ever Prem playoff win last week. So the momentum's behind us. We've had the losses this week. Obviously, we lost to Warwick. We beat them once. We lost to them, and like, losing to them probably made us beat Exeter, because it reset us. I don't like losing, but if it does as well in the long run, it's the end result really that actually matters. Maybe not the regular season. I'd like it to be 8-0, we're not 0-8, but we move on. But yeah, like, really excited. It'll be probably one of the best or one of the worst car journeys home with Connor, because he's a bad loser like I am, and it's a long drive. And the problem is, I'm a morning person that will drink 4 venti Starbucks on the way, so I will be up on cloud 9, and he will be fuming with me because he is not a morning person and he doesn't drink coffee. So there'll be 2 very different coaches getting out of my car when we arrive at Hilton at the weekend. But yeah, like, the car journey is where we sort of like have our time to sort of reset and stuff, and it's a long enough journey. So I guess get ready. Is that enough?
Yeah, 100%. Totally. I remember those type of journeys, certainly from Liverpool to Edinburgh or a place like that. You get a long sort of time of reflection, don't you, along the way. But as much as we've loved picking your brains about this one, there is another game that we have to talk about. I'm really sorry, but we've got to have to bring up that Warwick Wolves and the Portsmouth Destroyers, Stuart, because we did talk about it, didn't we? We've already talked about this result where NTU have just been a different team this second half of the season, haven't they? After Christmas, but Portsmouth took it to them. We wondered whether Portsmouth would be that one of those surprise teams in this playoff as well, and they now travel to Wolves this weekend, don't they, to take on Warwick?
They do, and it'd be interesting to see whether they bring the offense that they found from somewhere last week. If they can bring some of even 3/4 of that points, I think they'll probably squeak past Warwick. It'll be a close game. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that Portsmouth will go out and beat Warwick. It'll be interesting to see how well Portsmouth prepare for Warwick, because they are multiple in what they do. Having covered them as an official a few weeks ago, I got to see a little bit about them. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how well coached that game is. And I know that Warwick will similarly do a great job at scouting out Portsmouth and seeing what they do, because they put up their plays of the week on Facebook, and they're different plays again. So again, it's about being prepared, getting the groundwork done and sorted, so that when you step out on the field on Sunday, it's almost like you've been there before. And Bo's mentioned the word cliches. Here's me throwing them out as well. Isaac's not ticking them off his bingo card, I see though. So I'm coming up with different ones this week. Oh, he's missing out. But they're different cliches this week for me. I can see these being two opposite semi-finals. So I can see SGS Leeds being something like 30-40, like the Exeter game was the week before. I can see Warwick Portsmouth being something like 18-20, like being quite close in the score, but maybe not as high scoring as the opposing semi-final will be.
So you're predicting chaos that Bo's hoping not for this week for sure. And Isaac, Warwick, the last time they lost was in week 1 to Bo's team. They've been on a burner since, so it'll be a tough challenge for Portsmouth to even though it's not as far as Bristol to Leeds. It's still a bit of a trek for them to make and try and pull off an upset against Warwick Wolves.
Yeah, it's a huge ask, and it's hard really to gauge how their last game was, because we've seen that NTU have just been poor since Christmas. It's hard to understand how good Portsmouth were in that game. Obviously, they've got to be half decent to score 40 points. You can't just do that just by showing up. But no, I think that game's going to be an interesting one because we've seen how good Warwick have been since week 1, and are Portsmouth able to back it up what they did last week going into this game? But no, I think whoever gets to the final of that one will have totally deserved it.
Brilliant. And we're keeping the last 2 games to talk about being the top National League. We've got the rematch of Nottingham Gold versus Durham, where this time in the same fixture only a few weeks ago, Durham pulled off the upset against Nottingham. And then we've got a game that we've seen a few times that didn't end well between Bullets and Loughborough. But Isaac, how do you see these semi-finals going this weekend to set up the National Championship game for Bucks Tuesday?
I think the obvious side in the UWE Loughborough game is going to win. I'd love to see a Loughborough upset, but if you look at the games this season, I don't think that's going to happen. I hope it does, but I can't see it happening. That Gold Saints game is going to be. I think it's going to be a great one to watch. We saw how close it was last game. Then it came down to the final play where Notts scored a touchdown, but then it was ruled out, and all sorts of random stuff started happening in the middle of the game. One thing that Notts need to do though this game is be more disciplined. We've seen it over the last few weeks that's why they've lost. Really, they're just the classic of Nottingham are a well disciplined side, well drilled, don't really concede any penalties. That's not been happening these last couple of weeks, and I think that's what Durham are going to use to their advantage. So I would expect Durham to be on the wind up on Sunday.
And are you thinking the same, Bo, with these sort of 2 fixtures for what we've seen this weekend? And you've talked about the amazing programs and that all 4 of these have been in recent years.
Yeah, so I am Team Martin as a human because he's one of my favourite coaches in Bucks and Baffer positively, and I think he's smart enough to be able to control UWE's game clock and play that coaching element to it. I think he did. I think we were watching the last time they played them. Like it wasn't till like the 4th quarter where they were getting tired, where UWE sort of ran away with it. They're still winning. They're still beating them. Frankie and Dan Bullets are just. You can just see they love football. And they want to make sure that they make a statement. Unfortunately, I think they'll beat Loughborough quite easily, but without the master of time clock, I think Martin will be able to control the game so it's not as big a scoreline. And then the Nottingham Durham, it's so difficult because they're such good programs. They're coached very differently, very different stature and all that sort of stuff. I want Nottingham to win through Matt Gorn being like the assistant DC and Jason again being part of like my history and stuff. I think I want Nottingham to win more though because I think it will make a better final. In the true honesty of it, I think Durham. That's my dog. Sorry, I have to edit that.
It's fine. We're all at home. It's absolutely fine.
Connor's just come home. Sorry. Yeah. So I think I want Nottingham to win because I think it will make a better final. I think Nottingham play differently against the Bullets, and I think that's what we want to see in a final. Like, if it was Nottingham versus Durham in the final, it would be a good game. But I think, I don't know, there's just something different about Nottingham wanting to take it off Bullets in the final. I hope they come with how they played the first game, like of the season for them. I think it'll be Bullets versus Gold.
Yeah, well, the Golden Saints have been separated by 1 point over the two games, so they almost guarantee a close affair, can't we, Stuart? And we actually asked some community questions as well, didn't we, of these games, and so give us your thoughts and maybe tell us what the community think of who's going to win these games.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has already been said in the fact that is going to be a phenomenal semi-final. I really hope that Gold have sorted out a stream for it, because they normally stream their home games, and it's usually on their sport website. So, all being well, we'll get to watch that game, and it'll, as Bo said, it's worthy of being a final. So let's really hone in on that one and give that one a good watch. You look on the other side of it. Loughborough managed to cut the points differential from 60 to 40 in the two games last. Sort of in the actual National League, slightly different beast in knockout competition. But yeah, as Bo said, coaching kicks in. How can we keep the ball in our hands? How can we keep they've got athletes on all three sides of the ball, but how can we keep their offensive athletes off the field to keep that score down to give us a chance? Will I put my neck on the line as much as Bo has and predict a final? Probably not. But either way, it's going to be phenomenal when we get to Loughborough again for the actual final between whoever gets there, because as we've said, this National League has been a phenomenal epiphany that's kind of happened this year, and whoever we end up with at that game, it's going to be competitive and it's going to be exciting to watch.
Yeah, 100%. And so, yeah, we did send some polls out, didn't we? We had a little ask of what people thought, how this will go. Needless to say, most people think that UE are going to run away with it, which is probably not a surprise, but also just as probably surprising might be that everyone thinks Nottingham's going to win. We had 157 votes to 27 in that, so that's not our prediction. That's the community's prediction. Bo, we didn't try and put you off and tell you the results of our polls for the Vars, but couldn't call it. Honestly, nobody knows who's going to win either game. So we had around about 600 votes in this poll, and you share anywhere between 22 and 27% of the votes of who's going to win. So it's anybody's game in the Vars, which is delightful to hear. Kind of what we were talking about, wasn't it? Really, how close we're expecting it, which is great to hear, isn't it?
Let's just play good football. That's all we care about. Playing good.
That's all we want.
Have a good time. I don't have to get on the bus on the way home because they all think at that time.
Exactly.
Yeah. Football players with 52 sets of kit is not where a head coach should be on the bus on the way back from Bristol on a Sunday afternoon.
Definitely not. It certainly wouldn't be where I would be either. I would be choosing the side cart at the very worst, for sure. But no, thank you very much, Bo, for your time. It's been great to get some insight from you, from your neck of the woods, and also kind of try and preview some of these games. Hopefully, we wish you well at the weekend. Get down there safely and back safely, of course, as well, because it's always a treacherous trek across those Pennines into the south. So best of luck for sure, and thank you very much for joining us. So hopefully we'll get you on again sometime soon, maybe as a review of winning something. Maybe dare we dream?
Don't put a poll up.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really weird being the underdog because people have been blowing smoke for many years now, and it's really weird. I'm like that. They don't love us anymore.
No, you've got plenty of love by the sounds of it. Yeah, there are plenty of people who think you'll be doing all right. Either that or it's all those rosters actually. That massive roster that you've got. Maybe it's all of them because. Yeah, brilliant. And as always, Stuart and Isaac, thank you very much for your insights for books. And we'll be back again next week, of course, to discuss these semi-finals and preview the semi-final for the Conference Cup for sure, and might even touch upon some Books Tuesday that's happening the week after as well. But again, Bo, thank you very much for your time. It's been great to have you on Inside Britball, and thank you for everyone who's listening and watching, and we'll catch you again sometime soon. Thank you very much.